And some of us have attempted to trace who we are by finding the ships on which we came. Well, there is no record of this particular ship, the SS George, in any of the archives on Jamaican soil. You would have to go to the UK National Archives to be able to find a record of that ship and other ships. And during the course of this presentation, we hope we will engage you and you will engage us about how comes, how can that be, and what, if anything, can be done about our records. This presentation has been produced in collaboration with a number of agencies. We first of all want to thank the Center for Reparation Research for helping us to raid the UK National Archives to get some information on that ship and other ships. We want to thank the Institute of Jamaica, who also participated in the discussion. And very especially, we want to thank some very special guests who are here with us this afternoon. You will get to see their faces later. From the Registrar General Department, Mr. Mario Reynolds, Mrs. Sharon Lee, and Miss Juliet Grant. I got the J right. And Miss Juliet Grant. Those of you who are on the campus, we have a very special surprise for you. If you make your way to the Cage Gallery, from which we are broadcasting, you will be able to see a display about how you could track your own genealogy. And as a matter of fact, the representatives of the RGD are here to engage you in conversation about your desires so to do, and to engage you in conversation about how you might make use of that service. So we approach this as a research project, and we use a number of methodologies to get us to the presentation. We used autoethnographic approach because I was fortunate enough to have worked with the RGD and to have been able to track my own genealogy back to 1810. And that research project was completed finally, shaking her head because she would remember when Miss Michelle Williams from the RGD helped me to develop those as charts and brought them to me at this campus, and how excited I was that I was taking them home as a surprise for my own family for Valentine's Day. So we know that we go back more than 200 years as far as we can track. So we did that. We use something also called historicity, that we separate what we know from the historical facts to what people say as legend or as foolishness or what couldn't go so. In the way Columbus kept two sets of records, and then he would hide the real one and show the false one. Then we did some interviews, and one of our interviewees, Dr. Erna Brodber, helped us to understand what is meant by oral history and what we do when we can't find the written historical records, how we would therefore use oral histories to fill in the gap. So yes, I see Queens High School acknowledge all the people who are there saying hello. What we would like to do now is to go directly to the presentation, which Mr. Jesse Golden tells me is 58 minutes and some plenty whole heap of seconds. So it's a little shorter than an hour. And then we hope to engage ourselves in discussions, even if we don't have the answers, for another half an hour or so. So thank you very much again for joining us. We now go over to the marketing department, who will begin the streaming of the recorded section of the presentation. I know everything good for eat, good for talk. Talk and taste your tongue. This is Talking on Purpose.
Roots. 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 The name of Roots.
Audrey Wilson, 1948. Ah, you can also track where your other relatives were born, because this lot was born in Canada. And this lot born in a market street.
Hi, morning, Amina.
Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Sure, you're welcome.
So we're here at the Registrar General's Department in Twickenham Park.
Yes.
And I am with Michelle Williams. Michelle, tell me again, what's your exact designation?
Okay, so I'm the research supervisor for the Island Record Office, and I'm in charge of helping persons find their genealogical information.
Is this what I'm looking at here?
Absolutely. So this is a family tree. This is one of the products of genealogical research. So once we have conducted your research, finding your family lineage, we produce it in a graphical representation that shows all of your family members. Yes, going as far back. We have information going as far back as 1661. So as long, yes, all the way back to 1661.
Okay, so I have some more work to do, but I want to pause to make sure I understand two terms that you have used.
Sure.
You said lineage,
Right.
but you also said genealogical.
Right.
And lay people like me believe that those two words mean the same thing.
Okay.
What is the difference?
All right, so genealogy in its entirety not only uses family records, it uses oral history, it uses DNA, and we put all of that information to do a genealogical research. What the RGD offers is family research using our database and repository of records. So our database, we have database information going back to 1880, and we have a repository of records going all the way back to 1661. And these records includes births, deaths, marriages, baptismal records, burial records, deeds, conveyances of slaves, wills, indentures, all of
that
these records.
That is a lot to absorb. Is there any way all of that could be represented on one chart?
Right. So when we do genealogical research or when we do history search, family search, what we do, we use all the information available in our repository, right? So we will find your birth. When you check your own birth record, you'll recognize that your birth record includes your mother's name, her age at the time she had you, her parish where she was born, yes? And the same thing for your father.
I'm going to look for it on this chart. Show me. So we're looking at the chart of who?
All right, so we're looking at the chart of Deirdre English Goss. She was our former CEO, right? This is Deirdre English Goss.
Below the roots.
All right, so we started with her, all right? She was born April 18. Yes, she indicated that she don't want
the year on it.
Her year on it.
Okay.
Yeah, she don't want nobody to know her age, yes? And it indicated where she was born in Crossroads, St. Andrew, and it gives her reference details, yes? And of course, we indicated her occupation.
So the reference details, let
Yes.
me see if I'm right.
Right.
Your birth certificate has a number.
Correct.
And that number begins with a letter.
Right.
So that Jesse couldn't come and say, him is me.
No.
Because we would have two different numbers on our
Absolutely,
individual.
depending on which parish and district you're born in.
Okay.
So every parish and district is represented by a particular number. Yes, Kingston is represented by A. Kingston Victoria Jubilee Hospital is AA. Yes?
Okay.
So somebody could not be born in St. James
and come with an AA.
as their birth certificate. Yeah.
Fake news. Okay, so let's continue. So
All right.
where she was born.
So she was born in Crossroads, St. Andrew. Yes, and she married Dave St. Aubin Goss. yes? Born June 16 in Mandeville, Manchester, and we have the date of marriage there. Yes. And they got married at the University Chapel in St. Andrew. The reference details of his birth is also attached. Yes?
Does that mean that we can assume she was a university student? Because
At
the
the time of the
University
marriage?
Chapel has special considerations for the university community.
We could either assume, well, what we could assume, and what we know is that her husband is a lecturer at the university.
Me know him.
Right.
Okay.
So, and that's where they got married.
Okay.
Right? So the union had one child, Michaela. Now from Miss Goss, we go up to her siblings. So she has Glenroy English, who married Lisa Playfair, and this is their child. And then there's also Gail, who is another sibling for Miss Goss.
Go up to her parents.
All right, so her parents is Gilroy English and Carmen Moncrief.
Go up to her grandparents.
Grandparents, Walter James English and Josephine Gervin.
Go up to her great-grandparents.
So we have Joseph English and Mary Ann.
So this family tree has 4 generations. Is it 4 or 5?
What we have extracted.
What
it
you
could
have,
gone.
right. This chart,
Yes.
thank you for being precise. This
Right.
chart
Yes.
has, is it 4 or 5 generations?
On the paternal side.
On the paternal side.
Right.
Okay, show me the maternal
All
side.
right, so we have mommy here. So mommy's siblings. This is mommy, Carmen. All right. Then we have Carmen's sibling getting married here. Then we have Carmen's parents, Thomas Moncrief and Beatrice Allen. Yes. The tree also branches out into other areas of the generation. All right. So you'll notice that it is not only just a pedigree, because when we do pedigree trees, we're only concentrating on the straight lineage.
Miss, what's a pedigree?
All right, so the pedigree deals with the straight lineage of the parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents, the great-great-grandparents. So those persons who are not particularly interested in the extended family members, the aunts, the cousins, the nieces, the nephews, those persons. You just want to know your straight family lineage, you would do what is considered a pedigree search. So that's where we find only the straight lineage of the ancestors, right?
So this tree
Is an extended family tree.
Right.
So it not only includes, well, it includes all the family members that are located in our repository. We also have information that we got from the subject for those persons who were born outside of Jamaica.
I noticed that.
Right.
I noticed a number of people born in Canada.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the research is contained within Jamaica and Jamaican waters. So all those persons born outside of Jamaica, that information would have to be provided to us by the subject.
Okay. Question. If I walk in and I say, Miss Williams, I would like to do, let us take the simplest one, a pedigree search. That's the
Sure.
simplest one.
Yes.
Show me where you keep the information.
Oh, sure. Let me show you our vault, our repository of records.
But youth man, rooting in the muck like train.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
No, sir.
This is the repository of our records. You will notice that our vault, records are kept in a controlled environment because these records are the original registers dating as far back as 1661. So we, in our effort to maintain that make sure that they're preserved, they have to be in this controlled environment.
How do you touch it? Because that must be part
Right.
of keeping
Right.
it.
So when we use the records with gloves to ensure that we don't pass on any acid from our fingers on the documents that would break down the paper any quicker.
Are there persons who are specially trained to handle these documents?
Right. So we have our researchers. I have with me Mr. Mario Reynolds. He's one
Hi,
of our
Mr.
research
Reynolds.
officers.
Good day.
Good to meet you.
Right.
Good day.
And Mr. Reynolds used these records on a daily basis as it relates to his work in the vault.
Give me an idea of what a typical day looks like when you're looking for information.
Okay, well, with regards to the research itself, it comprises many things. As Ms. Williams might have said before, we do record our research. Will records, deed records, births, deaths, marriages.
Stop. Wills and deeds. What's a will and what's a deed?
Okay, all right. So a will record, most persons will probably know vernacular. It's basically once a person has passed, but this is like writing of dissemination of different assets that person might have had before, passing on to relatives, friends, things like that, in the eventuality of their passing. So, you know, not to cause any family feuds.
Right.
So there are a lot of
But
things.
why is that important to you? Because I, like many Jamaicans, believe a will is a piece of paper you pluck out when you have a climb 11 step. You go to court now.
Not necessarily, you know, not necessarily. It's not necessarily doesn't mean that you would have to do a will once you're knocking on heaven's door. You can do it at age 20, age 18. Once you have an asset, it is conducive to having a will, to know if in the eventuality of your passing that your family is taken care of.
I got
You know
that.
who
I got that. But why is the RGD interested in that record?
All right, so the will itself, what we do, what we have, the records, it does outline, even with our research itself, it does outline or give a visual representation of the family structure for that particular person within that specific time frame. So a will outline myself passing on to my daughter, my wife at the time, my mother, my brother. It outlines the visual representation of the family structure at that time and who it is that you want to pass. And it does assist with our research itself.
Okay, what makes that different from a deed?
All right, so now a deed records, now it varies. Deed comprises what we call buying and property sales, buying and selling of properties, buying and selling of slaves, especially going around the 1830s, going further back. When that was prominent, buying and selling of various other things such as what we'll say, plantations, various assets basically. Deed also would comprise what we call powers of attorney, which is also a separate document. This is basically one of our documents that we do record here as well, when someone is giving someone the authority to do something on their behalf. So the power of attorney, there's also various other records, assents, mortgages. All these records are recorded within our record.
So those are records that you would keep after the document has been acted upon. Let me explain what I mean. So I have willed something to my grandchildren, and the will goes to an executor, and they get what they're supposed to get. How do you access that document? They would have to come and deposit it with you?
All right, so the process for will currently now, you can, and there's different aspects with regards to will itself. You can come in before death and come and record that document. However, it will not be registered as a will until you pass.
Yes.
So now we have birth records,
Yes.
marriage records,
Yes.
deeds,
Yes.
wills.
Yes.
What other kinds of records do you keep here?
You failed to mention deaths.
Deaths.
You failed to
Yes.
mention burials. All right. So those records are. So the RGD itself came into existence in 1879 with the passing of the Record Office Act. Now, the Record Office Act gave us the authority to safekeep the records. The records were first held by the island's Secretary's Office yes, which is our colonial counterparts. And when that will came into effect, when that act came into effect, they handed over these records to us. All of these old records were handed over to the Island Record Office, yes? And so now we became the keepers of the records, yes? In 1880, with the passing of the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, this is when the RGD started registering events of births and deaths. And so the activity continues. Now we now have these records in our repository, the old records, and now we continue the activity of registering births and deaths. So all of this information now forms our repository, which we use to do your genealogical research.
But youth man, rooting in the muck like Trenton, cause nobody never tell him where him come from. Some of you are rude to find where I go.
On a morning, what would cause you to open this vault to come in?
All right, so as so we are called the Island Record Office, yes? Or
Westmoreland, Hanover, Portland, St. Thomas.
14 parishes of Jamaica. Now, under the Record Office Act, every document that, all right, so you're going to use a power, Mario made mention of a power of attorney. If I want to give you, Amina, power to transact business on my behalf, under the Record Office Act, I would have to get this document recorded with the Island Record Office before it can be transacted in the public. So every single deed that would ever arise in the island,
so I couldn't just write a piece of paper and give it to my friend and say, you have power of attorney in case.
It is not, it cannot be transacted.
It cannot be transacted. Thank you for that phrase. I would have to bring it here.
It has to come here. All right? That is mandated by law.
Okay.
Right?
So tell me now, why would you open this vault? To come inside here, you open it every morning?
Every single morning at 8:30.
Tell me why you open it.
Because we have to not only keep the records, but we have to preserve the records, yes? So persons keep coming every day to have documents recorded. So we are constantly creating history, libels, deeds. We are constantly creating documents that has to be recorded. Also, we have clients that would come in and want to conduct research. Yes, research into not only doing genealogical research, I know we're on that topic, but they also want to find their deed, and they want to find their grandfather's will, and they want to find their cousin's deed where they left a piece of property to them by a deed. They want to find out the entire information around their family. So they come here to do that search.
Henry Morgan
yes.
left some money for St. Mary.
Yes.
Where do I find that record
I have
here?
a will for Henry Morgan in this repository.
Because I have roots in St. Mary.
So you want to see Henry Morgan's will?
Yes, so I keep saying, what Henry Morgan leave for me?
All right. I don't know what he leave for you, Miss Amina, but I can show you Henry Morgan's will now.
I would love to see that.
Let us get that. Mario, pull it for me, please.
Oh, my goodness. What made it so easy to find?
All right, so we pulled some of these interesting records. We have quite a bit of them that we pull because persons, once they hear about Island Record Office, they have an instant interest in Henry Morgan, the pioneer, the buccaneer. Persons have that instant interest. So we pull them and we label them for persons like you, Amina, who will want to have that interest in finding the will.
Suppose I wanted my students to have a look at this.
Sure.
I'm talking about the legalities now. If I didn't want them to come in, because look at Mr. Jesse Golden taking a picture. That's legal?
Yes, you can view it. It's a public record.
Okay, okay.
My words is the truth, and the truth causes offense. And I don't care what men want to say about me. Because without the truth, there is no consciousness.
Teach the youth to learn in school that the cow jump overboard. So you can't play the youth, and you can't fool the youth. You can't play the youth soft to the youth.
youths about Christopher Columbus, and you said he was a very great man. You teach the youths about Marco Polo, and you said he was a very great man. You teach about the use of pirate Hawkins, and you said he was a very great man. TV's about the pirate Morgan, and you said he was a very great man.
Read it for me, please, Michelle.
This my last will and testament, hereby making void, disallowing, and
Crab toe.
free, making all and every will and publish. First, I give and bequeath my soul into the hands of the Almighty God.
So you have to bequeath your soul to God.
That's
all right.
what he did. That gave it freely, believing in and hoping for a pardon for and
Yes, Henry Morgan.
of all my
have
sins.
a right to ask
So
a
the man
pardon
asked
for
a pardon
all
for
his
his sins, and he gave his soul completely to
Right.
God. Through the merits and meditation of my blessed Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And the man
Wonderful.
believed in God.
So he gave his body what now?
My body I bequeath to the earth.
Very good.
And to be decently buried at the discretion of my executrix and trustees, formally crediting joyful resurrection. Yes.
All right, go down a little more now, Miss
right,
Michelle.
where you want me to go now?
I want to see what he left for St. Mary. Because as a storyteller, people believe I make up these things.
Okay.
To ask you, please, you find it?
Request to the parish of St.
There you go.
There you
Tell
go.
us what he bequested to me.
After my debts have been paid, I do give and bequeath unto the parish of St. Mary the sum of £100.
Enough money.
In 1688, that's a whole heap
Enough
of
money.
So £100 was given to the parish of
Did he
St.
say
Mary
what it should
to be
be used?
dispensed for the use of the said parish at the discretion of the justices. And he gave the justices' name. So there are two justices here. So it was at their discretion that the £100 must be used for the parish.
At their discretion.
Yes.
So them could have planted up 2 rose gardens for themselves. At their discretion. So in
1688.
1688, Henry Morgan give him soul to God.
Yes.
Him give him body to the earth.
Yes.
Him give whole heap of other things.
Yes. But he
And
bequeathed
he bequeathed, yes,
£100
to the
to the
parish
of St. Mary. Yes.
To be used at the discretion of the justices.
at the time. Yes.
Wow. Thank you for that. I'd always heard that in my work as a storyteller.
Okay.
Because there are old people in St. Mary who say, Henry Morgan left
some,
things.
of course,
Yes.
for £100.
And I promised myself that one day
You would
I would
finalize this
verify the information.
Beautiful.
If I want to know where they worked or what was their occupation.
All right. So some of that information is also available on the family research that we had did earlier. We indicate the occupations that run prevalent in a particular family.
intellect, assert him roots through science. And in my roots, Lord, and in my roots.
What do we mean by oral history?
Well, it is history, which is, among other things, chronicling things that happen in time. But the oral part is that the major sources are face to face. And I probably could expand that a little because a lot of history has been written using documents in archives. And the tendency of using those documents has been that they give you the history of the great man, not even the great woman, just the great man. Now, if you want more than that, there are people who will never, ever get into the archives. My father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather, whom I'm looking at now, never wrote any letters that were deposited in the archives. And after emancipation, the black part of us never even get to be into book any longer. So you have to turn to oral sources. The documentary archival thing's not going to cut it for somebody like me who wants to know something else but what the governor said, which is what the documents tell you. Okay.
And
Yes,
of course,
so that,
we have been taught to privilege that which has been written.
Right, that has been written. Okay, because that is how history has been defining itself for some time, which ends, as I said, in being the story of the great man. Okay, or the great man, usually the great man, not the great woman. Okay, which is neither me nor my father nor my grandfather. So if I want to know something about myself, it is rare that I'm going to find myself in these documents. So I better find another way. It helps you to fill in the blanks. And sometimes it helps you to correct, not just fill in blanks, but correct. Let me tell you something which has been on my head for some time. Of course, we've already passed the stage where we know that if we're going to do our thing, we can't depend on the archives, and we can't depend on the National Archives to tell us about ourselves because they tend to be biased towards something. But talking about 1938, I did this study where I interviewed 90 people all over Jamaica, 45 men and 45 women. I wanted to know what their life was like so I could make some comparisons with today's thing. And you know how we go on about 1938, it is the beginning of Jamaican history and it involved everybody. Now, when I interview somebody who was a coal burner and he would take his coal from Clarendon and come to Kingston, to Greenwich Park, and then he would sell his coal there and he would tie out his animals in the grass yard there. Wouldn't you imagine that if 1938 is such a big thing, he would remember that?
But it was also a traumatic
He has
thing.
no memory whatsoever of 1938. But that has meaning.
Yes.
It has meaning. It now sends me to say, to hypothesize, was 1938 and a thing, a revolution of the intellectuals? To what extent was the man like the coal burner involved in this revolution? I don't have the answer, but it raises a question.
Well, I don't want to jump the gun. I realize that you were very excited with regards to Mr. Henry Morgan's
Yes.
but you do have family members persons within your family that also left wills, and we do have that here as well. So, Mr. Thomas
Bucknell. That's my great-grandfather.
Yes, grandfather. And he was he passed within 1929 I should say, and we did find a will for him. Be sure.
I thought you were doing a hypothetical case.
No, we wouldn't do that to your heart. We wouldn't do that to your heart. So, okay. So here is his name, and here is his role. Mr. Thomas Bucknell.
Dated the 23rd,
Of February.
1925.
And entered 1929. That is all right, so this, the will of Thomas Bucknell,
Referred to in the oath of the attesting witness George Isaacs, sworn on the 7th day of May 1929. This is the last will and testament of me, Thomas Bucknell, residing at Lawrence Tavern. So that's why wills are important.
Oh my goodness.
In the parish of St. Andrew, made this 23rd day of February in the year of our Lord 1925. I hereby revoke all the wills made by me. Hereunto I appoint George Bucknell to be my executor. You know that name?
George Bucknell,
Yes.
could that be his brother or his son?
That my debts and funeral expenses shall be paid, and blah blah blah. After that decease, I give and bequeath unto my son George Bucknell 4 acres of land at Oakley.
Yes.
My son,
Son
Solomon,
Solomon.
you know Solomon, 3
Yes.
acres of land at
3,
Oakley,
Mount Ogle,
and son Joseph Williams Bucknell,
Oh my
2
goodness.
acres of land at Mount Oakley. So he did have whole heap of land, man. And granddaughter,
Oh my
Iana
goodness.
Bucknell, 3 acres of land at Mount Oakley, and the balance 3.5 acres of land to be sold for the support of myself and my wife, Diana Bucknell.
I know the
2.5
whole of
acres.
them.
There you go.
My cousins are there.
There you go. See there? To be sold at any time for myself and my wife, Diana, to support her continually.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. In dividing.
I give none of my land to my son, Thomas Bucknell.
Oh, what Thomas Bucknell
Thomas
doing?
That's right.
See the drama coming out now. The drama coming
Thomas doing something.
Yes, I have lived on record that the son of £1, the sum of £1 cash to be given to him and to
As
show of his legacy.
Oh
Shares
my
in the
goodness.
grandchildren.
Oh, and these are the grand first.
I hereby give my grandson Robert Augustus Bucknell 1/2 acres part of Goben St. Andrew. I give to my granddaughter Diana Bucknell 2.5 acres part of Goben St. Andrew. I give to my grandson George Bucknell 1/2 acres part of Goben St. Andrew. Fourth, I give to my grandson Herbert Bucknell 2.5 acres part of Goben St. Andrew.
Goburn.
It's Goburn. It's as a
Goburn,
G-O-B-O-N.
me hear my mother call it.
George Henry Bucknell and Herbert Eliza, the last 2 named grandsons are to be, Elisha, are to be claimed the house and 5 acres of land.
The man had land.
The man had whole heap. He look like he's a rich man. Lot of land and money.
We never poor.
Not at all.
Take back your name and give I the I name. I and I don't want this your name. Chinese name Chin and Chong. Macintosh came from Scotland. Indian name Raja and Gavaskar. I'm unsure Smith no come from Africa. Oh no. You hear what I say? Oh no.
When we try to track our genealogy, sometimes we are not successful because the names we are looking for never exist.
That's right.
People give us them on a name
Right.
and them sell us from one place to the other
That's
place.
right.
What are those records called?
All right, so the actual arrangement of sale is called a conveyance of slave, where we have persons buying not only the slaves but entire plantations and the contents of the plantations that would include the slave. And the slave was
So
considered
I
a
am the
chattel.
content of a plantation.
That's right.
Along with the cattle, along with the goats.
dog.
Right. So you would actually see a listing, an itinerary of a plantation. So you'll see 100 slaves, 10 female, 10 males. Then you'll see 10 horses, 5 goats, the entire content of a plantation
But would
is
you see
sold.
the names of the
You
enslaved
will
Africans?
not see the names because you are chattel. You are not considered
But
a
could
body.
I see which plantation they went to, or they would remain on the same spot?
If there is another conveyance where they are sold to another plantation, then you would see that
Okay.
that information. But it is hard for you to track because you'll only see Jack. So in this particular conveyance, this is the sale of a Negro slave named Jack. Consideration 45 pounds currency.
Was that indeed worth plenty?
Deed dated the 16th of November, 1747, and it was probated, yes, on the 20th of November, 1747.
So it was made legal, in other
Right.
words.
So, yes, because male slaves were very, very, very expensive and very
Precious.
to have because they were the ones that populated the entire plantation.
Right.
Yes. So the 45 pounds was, as you said, quite a bit of money for a male slave.
This is a sale
Of a Negro woman slave.
now.
Yes. But she is 70 pounds.
Oh my goodness. Does that mean that she was young?
Possibly.
Very possibly.
fruitful.
Very.
Yes.
And they could get many other
Strong
children out of her.
from her.
Right.
You see that?
And this was dated the 17th of September, 1747.
Same
and probated that.
year. Same year. So it would be interesting to find out now why a female enslaved African was worth 1.5 times her male counterpart in the same year, couple months apart. What?
She and her son. Sale of a Negro slave named Ivan and her son Tony.
Okay, him get a brata. What is in this column?
Right, so this is the particulars of the arrangement. So this is
Okay,
David,
between who and who?
Right. So this is David Davis, John Davis to is this Beavis?
Beavis George. Wow. So the only way that a person would be able to track their enslaved relatives, ancestors, is if they had the names. But that's difficult to find.
When you reach this point, it is almost impossible to find. It's almost impossible because you had no name.
The last name.
And then this name is now, he's going to be John, what's the name of the plantation? Grove. He's going to be John
Grove.
Right. So that's the name he's going to pick on.
So if he was formerly owned by Mr. Davis, let us say, he would have been John Davis, as in John belonging to Davis.
The Davis plantation.
But no Mr. Grove by him.
Right, so he is now
becomes John Grove.
Right.
Yes.
You see what complication?
And it's still around to this day because, I mean, for Indians, for example, I have a colleague. He goes by the name, for example, Michael Johnson, but he took on the plantation owner's name, Johnson, when his name coming from India was Sarju, for example. But he's aware that that is his original Indian name. But he still uses Michael
But many
Johnson.
people are not aware and have no way of coming into that awareness.
So the names that we now have are not really our names. The Williamses, the Meeks, the Johnsons,
The Blackwood.
the Blackwood, they are not really our names.
But if I know that Blackwood originated in, I have 3 possible places in Scotland, then I could find
Right.
those,
And DNA assists you with that
and
very
DNA
well.
assists me. Here I am, discovering the records at the Institute of Jamaica, established in 1879. And I am looking at works of Sir W. Raleigh, of which there are several volumes. So I know that to be Sir Walter Raleigh. And I come down some more and I see the history of British India. Wow. Then I come down here now. We're just sampling what's here. And I finally see something that might relate to me. Yearbook of Facts of 1865. In Paul Bogle.
Thank you, Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks and your team for visiting the Institute of Jamaica and continuing the journey. I see the baton you are carrying of our heritage. We are all aware that the Right Excellent Marcus Messiah Garvey said, a people without the knowledge of their past, their history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. And much of that knowledge of who we are, we find in the oral tradition. When I was little, my parents, who came from country, which is very significant to me, would take us down to the waterfront to listen to the police band on a Sunday. And so I grew up having a sense that that location is an important part of our history. What can you share with us today about the waterfront coming all the way up as part of our history?
Wow, it's a sad part of our history. And you will recall that Professor Colin Chan has said, our ancestors did not arrive through immigration. They came through customs because they were regarded as goods. And on arrival on that ship, they were bathed, they were oiled, they were put on the auction block, and afterwards the hot iron, they were stamped.
That is before they actually came on the road.
Yes. Well, they were on the road. In 1791, the Assembly passed law that they should not have it on the ship. Yes, that should have the auction off the ship, because you used to go on the ship to buy the enslaved, but that was discontinued. So everyone would be looking on at our ancestors almost naked on the auction block. So that space down there, the bottom of King Street, is very significant for us. Sometimes I avoid driving by.
Is that the space now marked by Negro Arouse?
Negro Arouse by Ed Manley.
So after we would have been displayed in all our naked glory, ironic, we would have gone where? We would have
the persons, the Bakramasas who bought us would now take us, they would have their buggy, their transportation to take us to the various plantations. But there were some of us, my own ancestors, who after a week or so, they would be able to make links through the African language and connect. So you have 5 maroon communities: Flagstaff, St. James, Accompong, St. Elizabeth, Charlestown, Portland, Moortown, Portland, and Scotsall, St. Mary. Scotsall is very significant because Nanny traveled from Moortown through Scotsall, and I told some visitors, not on the coast, but through the middle of the island. She overnighted at Scotsall to go to Accompong to tell her brother Kodjo not to sign the treaty.
Right.
Why not to sign the treaty? You are signing in a language you do not understand. And a part of that language was that enslaved who ran away should be returned. And there is a modern writer now, Thomas Waste. He said, the large print giveth, but the small print taketh away.
That's a very important point for you to make about the language. In 2022, the beginning of the United Nations decade for indigenous languages. How can you sign something, a treaty, in a language you do not understand? Wow. But when you spoke about the route that Nanny would have traveled, you ever hear say there are underground tunnels from downtown to various places?
Well, there's one near to where what we call Tivoli today, to Kingston Public Hospital. There's an underground tunnel there.
And would that tunnel have been the route through which we were taken?
Not necessarily, but those tunnels were intended for war because the French were continually trying to recapture Jamaica and the Spaniards. So that was just a strategic point. Yeah.
So that must have been a network of tunnels then?
Oh yes, still exists.
There are many stories around the region, which we won't explore this morning,
yes,
about enslaved Africans walking in tunnels or channels below the water to connect to other islands.
Our enslaved, they walk at night. The journey was by night. And don't underestimate the Peeny Wally, which was their flashlight. Because the Bakra Master would think it's flashlight. But they had, even as a child, we used to catch the flashlight and the Peeny Wally as flashlight and do our journey. Yeah.
It's a reminder that every place we step on in Jamaica literally is sacred ground.
Oh, Dr. Amina, you hit the nail on the head. The entire Jamaica, sacrosanct, sacred ground. Even this space, which before our discussion now that we're having, we spoke about this space, which was called Date Tree Hall. They didn't know the nomenclature hotel, it was called hall. And that was where visitors stayed. Lord Nelson stayed here, Sailor Nelson. So when you go to Trafalgar Square and you see the monument to him, do remember that he would have overnight here. And when he returned to England, he told Prince William, Britain's sailor prince, Nelson had to spend a year in Jamaica, you'll recall, because when he went to Nicaragua in the 1780s, he returned with what they say is dysentery. He was too sick, too weak to go back to England. And he was taken to Port Royal. Well, he was living in Port Royal, but from here, taken to Port Royal, where a lady by the name of Cuba Cornwallis, healed him, restored him to perfect health.
And that's a name we have to say with great reverence. And she deserves her own program.
She's not, yes, and she's not given the recognition she deserved.
One of the reasons I'm so happy you mentioned Cuba is that the history of these other folks, like Mr. Nelson, rolls so easily off the tongue because it's full up we head. But the history of Cuba doesn't roll off so easily.
The person who prepared the meal is never recognized. It's only the person who ate the meal. And I'm so glad that you are making that point. And that's a lesson to all of us. Not only Jamaica, but for the world. Thank you so much for that. I would want to say that we are not taking seriously our heritage. I know the Honorable Minister, Oliver Grange, and the ministers before, the governments before, they're doing a lot, but guess what? There is a need for more involvement of people, and not only for special occasion. History is a way of life, the way we are speaking today. We must continually speak about it, because if young Stephen Golding, he said the truth must be continually told, because those who tell the lies, the lies will become true.
My words is the truth, and the truth causes offense. And I don't care what men want to say about me. Because without the truth, there is no consciousness.
I was going out into the field to look at people who could tell me, to get from people to tell me how they did things. Like I'd done already work in yards in the city of Kingston. And one of the things I'd realized from looking at yards is the treatment of girls. there's an ambivalence concerning the treatment of girls. People want them to be sexual in that they are there to make children. But if a boy start talking to them or they start talking to them, is thumped down and beat up and all the rest of it. I've never been able to understand it. So I wanted to know, for instance, this ambivalence concerning girls. Was this also among people who are growing up in 1900? Okay. So I went in the field to do that. I was just looking at people then who were born about that time. But one of the things that came out of just listening to them, I come from psychiatry. I've had a year of psychiatry. So, and psychiatric interviewing. So all I did was said to them, tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. And having given me that, I follow through with that. I just follow through with that. Somebody might say, for instance, the thing I remember most is sitting with my mother baby and have the earthquake shaking. And I frightened. And I follow through from that. You follow me?
Yes.
I follow through from that. It is their story. They tell that story. That's what I want them to do. Okay. So in the process, so many people talked about slavery. This is that people born 1900. So many of them talked about slavery. There are people, I gather from them that there are people would talk about it. Just like how people tell a Nancy story, they would talk about slavery stories. And so I realized that these people are associating themselves with the past of their ancestors. And they are, when I measured it out, they are like the second generation. If you're using 70 as a generation, they are the second generation of free people. Thus the name of the work is the second generation of free men. Okay. Second generation of people born after 1838. Okay. Which gave me now a different, I left the field completely new myself. Anthropologists like to say, you must get out of the field as you went in, but that for me is foolishness because I'm a native and there has to be a native way of dealing with these things. So I understood that people had their knowledge of Africa, they had their knowledge of slavery, and these things they held very firmly. So that is the first thing. I'm looking at these people now, not just as people who were born in 19, but as people who are the second generation of people born free, who could also tell me something about the first generation because this was their parents and their grandparents and stuff like that. So I could get a range of history of black people from them. Okay. That I leave that now because that is a bigger thing, or you're more interested in the Woodside story. In the Woodside story now, I like to think of something we're calling now the deep archives. And the deep archives for me is, and for most of us who use the term, is what the ordinary person remembers. Just what they remember. Okay. So for me, when I was doing the Woodside story, and I'd like to tell you that doing the Woodside story, I relate this to Swithin Wilmot. Swithin came here and did a lecture on people in St. Mary who had the vote and how they voted. And people were just sat down here amazed with their mouth open. They had never considered themselves to be part of history until Swithin came and taught this. So I said I have to pick up from where Swithin left off and do some more of this history, which meant for me that the village now became the archive, not the place over in Spanish Town. The village was the archive, and everybody had inside of their head, not written, but carved upon their memory, something about Woodside that I needed to get. And so I'm not calling it oral history, except in the sense that it was oral. I like to call it now the looking inside of the deep archives. Because when you reach the stage where people understand so much what you're doing that they tend to call you and say, this piece of land here, so you never asked me, but this piece of land here, so it belongs to that person. So they were participating as well in it wasn't a researcher distinguished from the field. We were in it together. And they were the archives which they were allowing me to thumb through and look at. how do you give back the history to the people? That is what led me to it, because it is theirs and they have a right to it. And which is why now I did a play, but it was a play in which the youth, I wanted the youth to learn. While we were getting ready, while you're organizing the play, directing it, I teach them the history that was given to me by their parents and their grandparents. And so that they are now reenacting what was given to me by their parents and grandparents. They're reenacting the work that has come out of the archives. Okay. So it was both a teaching situation in terms of preparing them for the stage. And on the stage now, they had the names of their ancestors. So they were acting out, and people in the audience who felt the right. Some people came up and said something because them hear them name, them hear them family name, and they come up and wanted to say something and stuff like that. So it moved into what I think is called community theater.
And sometimes I say I'm South African because we know that the Africans were shipped from West Africa. What we are not always taught is that the internal slavery, they would go to Southern Africa, capture the Africans, traffic them up the coast, and then ship them from the West.
Okay.
So the fact that we were shipped from Ghana or Nigeria doesn't mean the search would end there.
My name is Amina Blackwood Meeks. I thank you so much for being with us on this edition of Talking on Purpose, and look forward to seeing you and your comments and your questions next time.
Them are roots. And them are roots. Roots.
Thank you everyone for staying with us. As we said earlier, the representatives of the RGD are here with a very important display. You can come over if you're on campus and have a look at it, and then engage their services to see how far back you may go. While you are posting your comments in the chat, allow me please to put the project in context. This project is done as part of, wow, okay, we soon come and look at all of that. But this project is done in the context of Jamaica 60. As we celebrate Jamaica 60, and we also look towards nationhood and nation building, what does it mean if we can't connect to where we are coming from? Secondly, this is the 45th anniversary of the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. So as artists, what are the implications for how we create works that might fill in some of these blanks? I like what Dr. Broadbus said about the deep archives and about the village being the archives. And so this entire institution is an archive of the arts. As a matter of fact, the students from the Introduction to Caribbean Studies, who should have been here because they have a project coming out of this, if they can do the genealogy of the Edna Manley College. And since I'm on that, let me thank a number of people and put interim principal on standby to say something. Let me thank Princess Sinclair from Jamaica Customs for joining us, our friends from California, the architects of the CARICON, which is a Caribbean literature conference. I saw author Andreen there. So Andreen, you have plenty of things to write about. I saw in the chat someone saying, I have a new project now. I see someone watching from Northern Ireland and saying how powerful this was. We acknowledge our Caribbean sisters and brothers who also benefit from the Edna Manley College. And we have students from those places, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and other Caribbean countries, New York, and all over the world. We want to thank the college library representatives and all the other members of the Edna Manley family who tuned into this. The deans, Mr. Marlon Sims, Mr. Andre Adman, Dr. Keno Sr., oh yes, Beverly Davis from London, all our media friends who are here, Cabo media personnel. We are so happy to see you. We've had such wonderful discussions. Is that Alipat? Is that my Greek storyteller? Wow. Philip Clark of the University of Technology. Dr. Katie Dieter, who used to be here with us and is now the Associate Director of African and African American Studies at Stanford University. VP Henry, who is here with us in person in the Cage Gallery. Yay! VP Roger Williams. And forgive me if we're not able to call all the names, because now we want to take your questions. RGD will take away some of the questions. Thank you for all the messages to my phone to say there must be follow-up. People already identifying what the follow-up should be. And last but not least, I want to thank our interim principal, Miss Dorrit Campbell, for whom this is her first talking on purpose. To show your face and talk to us, please. Are you still there? Is she still there?
Yes, I'm still here, and you
Yes.
asked me to say something. Good afternoon, everyone. Really, it's a pleasure to be part of this, and I find it really very powerful, really interesting route. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I saw my very good friend, Mr. Crawford there. I'm sitting here thinking, Mr. Crawford and Dr. Blackwood Meeks, that we are actually sitting on a national treasure. The good thing about this, however, is that we do know we have a national treasure in the Institute of Jamaica. And we also know and would have claimed all our roots, be they R-O-O-T-S, R-O-U-T-E-S. We have claimed the rite of passage to be who we are. And it really is very interesting to know that you, Amina, could have traced back your roots to the, what's their call again? The Bucknells?
Yes, to 1810 on both sides of my family. So the Blackwood and the Bucknells.
And they owned land. And I am trying to see if we could trace the name and to see the origin of that name. But they actually owned half of Kingston, it would seem. And I'm absolutely sure that they were from Baptist roots, because you said that they own the land on which Oberlin is built. And I know that Oberlin has its affiliation to the Jamaica Baptist Union, and that piece of land would have been bequeathed to us by some Baptists. But this is wonderful. This is moving, and on top of the fact that it is inspiring, it is practical. People can walk away with something practical and practicable from this session. I am looking forward to seeing more of our talking on purpose, talking purposely. And may I be allowed to put one little personal thing in there, Dr. Blackwood Meeks?
Yes, miss.
I understand that the RGD is in the house, and I'm going to be making my way from my office over to them now.
Come over.
Because my niece in Suriname was born in Jamaica, and she now needs to get from the RGD verification that the signatory on her birth certificate was actually someone who worked there. I found it rather interesting, rather intriguing. that there's a stamp, there's a seal there, but they want verification that that particular chief executive officer actually worked there. So I'm on my way over now to explore that with you further. But thank you so very much, Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks and all the other team members who have put this together. It was, as I said, inspiring. It was an eye-opener, and it tells me that we're actually sitting on a national treasure. And I hope that all the persons who were watching, some persons all the way from the United States of America who want credit for this session because they see it for what it is, a lecture, a very inspiring lecture. And so they would like to get some credit for participating in this lecture. And we will find a way to make that happen as we continue as a creative community, not just to display our art on canvas, but also on the narrative of the storyboard. Bless you all. Have a good afternoon.
Yes, we're expecting you, Principal. We're waiting for you. Mr. Mario Reynolds is going to try to address some of the questions now about how long it takes and what costs are involved.
Okay, well, the first thing, the turnaround time.
You can take off your mask.
Oh, I can. Let me take off the mask. I'm trying to represent the agency. You know? All right, with regards to the turnaround time for the genealogy research, it's usually a 6 to 8 week turnaround time. That gives us enough to garner as much information on whatever specifics that you want us to focus on with regards to research. As you could tell from Miss Amina Blackwood Meeks' research itself, there's many things that we can research. We can research mother's side, father's side, maternal and paternal lineage. We can research if any of those relatives might have left properties, lands. There's many things. We also have aspects of the research that we use to find long lost relatives. That's one part of the service that we do offer as well. So there's many routes that we can take with regards to this type of research itself.
Use the archive under your supervision?
Yes, the archives is available. The archives is available to anyone. Once you've made payment for the research itself, you can come in. We will be there with you, stand guard, and oversee to show you how it is to go through some of these records, because I know that based on how it's structured, there are a lot of it that needs to probably, you'll need a little guidance on how to go through it, but we will be there to oversee you. We won't leave it to the dark, to the wolves. We'll show you what to look for, how to go through it, and trust me, it is, as I said, it's a more interesting feeling once it is that you're actually looking at physically seeing the records for yourself relating to your great-great-grandmother, your great-great-grandfather, these records, you know? With regards to the cost now, these it ranges, it's $1,500 per hour for the research. And we usually recommend a minimum of 3 hours to start with. And that's just basically to get a little groundwork of the research itself. You can rate, it ranges from 3 going as much as you so choose, from perhaps a 10-hour. That's enough, for a significant amount of hours enough for us to garner as much information going as far back as possible. Yes, simple 1,500 Jamaican. 1,000 is for 1 hour, and as I said, the minimum to 3 hours, that's 4 or 5. Trust me, it is nothing to actually unearth more of your history.
And once you start, you don't want to stop.
And that is, yes, once you do start this, there's so much information, there's so much route that you can take. There's so much history that we don't know of our own family. And you know, these routes that you can take can help shed some light on so many things.
Is there a telephone number we could use to get in touch with you?
Yes, you can call the RGD 876-619-1260. And my extension is 6124. I'm one of the research officers there. There's also Miss Williams. The extension is 61. The telephone number is 876-619-1260. My extension is 6124. As I said, I'm one of the research officers there. From the video, you saw Miss Michelle Williams. She's also one of the researchers. She's actually the supervisor for the research section. So you can also reach out to her as well. Her extension is 6115.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Any other?
Yes. I'm here busy typing.
Any other questions? I'm here and I'm available.
I am sharing camera and trying to with Mr. Reynolds. All right, so on behalf of the family here at EMC BPA, Dr. Blackwood Meeks, interim principal and team, we would like to present you all with a little token, EMC BPA style, very pretty. But we really want to thank you. And this is a family discussion, so we're welcoming you all into our family. And so we have off camera, but looking quite lovely. They could be on camera. Juliet and Sharon over, also with us, and we have provided them their token. And thank you so much, Mario. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
And please come over. There are pamphlets with information as well, and you can have a wonderful discussion with the team. I already have my in because I was here and speaking directly. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much for this. That was very, very thoughtful.
We in another situation, we would have started by pouring libation. In this situation, before we close out, we're not closing out, we're going to be here while the team from the RGD is here. But we recognize that some persons may have to go to other assignments. We would like to be quiet for 30 seconds in honor and in memory of those who came on that ship that really was illegal, but because of the loopholes in the act to abolish the transatlantic trade in enslaved Africans, them jump through it and bring 235 of us here. 4,040 altogether came after the act on 16 ships, all of whom discovered how to jump through the loophole, but the SS George was the last one. So maybe next year we all go down to the waterfront on the 17th of February with flowers and with music, with musicians from the Edna Manley College and with poets, and we go and play homage. For now, can we just have 30 seconds of silence, please? Thank you so very much. We are going to ask you if you could send to the marketing department because I don't know how to capture it in the chat. You want to come over? Okay, I don't know how to save the chat, but we do want your addresses so we can invite you to future activities. So VP Henry, what is the marketing department email? Marketing, yes, she's gonna type it as well. marketing@emc.edu.jm. We want to keep you as part of the family and as part of these discussions. Welcome interim principal and VP Williams. Thank you so much for coming over. And that's the team. Mrs. Lee, Miss Grant, and Mr. Reynolds. Go see what my principal needs.
Sure. And thank you. It is a very gracious thing that you're doing, shedding so much light on this topic. It's something to be commended.
Okay, now I could give us.
Sorry, what are you saying? What's her name? Hello, Mr. Mika Clough. Thank you very much, Deputy CEO of the RGD. And thank you for allowing us to come into your space and take all that information and put you in the video light and capture your star for today. Thank you. Wow. My granny used to tell us that people used to hear weeping and wailing in the Kingston Harbor long after slavery ended. I'm speaking to the marketing department directly now. I know there is a way to capture the chats in these presentations. So if you're able to capture the chats for us, then we can see what artistic information, springboards we are able to use. An invitation again to those members who are on the campus still to come over and engage the RGD with the services that they offer. I know what I done. Did you see your students? Okay, so I need to give it the